between HotMEOWTH and StrifeCro. Going into the first game, we see HotMEOWTH on the Control Mage, StrifeCro on the Oaken Summons Jade Druid.
So yeah, like this Oaken Summons deck has been very popular. I think only Sidonia had the Jade Spirits from what I can remember. I'm sure there were others, but they're kind of eluding me at the moment. But the Oaken Summon version is certainly going to be worse in a matchup like this where you just need to apply pressure because HotMEOWTH has the Skulking Geist, and this Mage deck draws so little naturally that you're almost never going to win to Fatigue as Druid, a deck that's drawing 5 cards at a time with Ultimate Infestation, 3 cards with Nourish. So the fact that he has lower Jade density is going to be a big problem when a card like Skulking Geist comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. In this matchup, there is so much removal from the Burn Mage side. It often feels like the natural amount of Jades that the deck has just isn't quite enough. A strategy that I'd like to see is just kind of imagine that the deck doesn't have Skulking Geist on turn 6. Get as much ramp as you can, try and shuffle that idol into the deck, and summon more additional Jades. Because if you're just working up to 7, 7, 8, 8 Jades, a lot of the time that is not going to be enough to deal with the amount of removal that the Burn Mage, or the Big Spell Mage has here.
I think if you don't see Skulking Geist come down on turn 6, they're never likely to have it. Like, they're always just going to play it if they draw it, but they probably don't have it in their hand if they didn't play it on turn 6. So I think seeing if they play it or not on turn 6, and then if they don't, gambling and shuffling in and trying to draw more idols is very reasonable. A big thing I think is Fandral. The combination of Fandral, Jade Idol, and Nourish all in one turn. You can get a lot of free idols out, and while your deck will be filled with them, and if they get Geist away, that's just upside. All you really did that turn was just get more idols out.
Yeah, we saw that in a previous match. Ray C was in this situation as well, where he had the second Jade Idol in hand and decided to play it out before turn 6, being a little bit weary of the Skulking Geist that might have came down. What do you think about a hand situation like that?
I think you just have to evaluate. Like, if you have a lot of pressure in hand, let's say you have Aya Blackpaw, Jade Behemoth, Ultimate Infestation, Malfurion. If you have a stacked hand, then just buffing all your Jades by +1/+1 is extremely powerful. But if your hand is looking weaker, maybe you're sitting on branching paths and Nourish, you can't get a lot going, I think it's much more reasonable to gamble and say, I think that I need to shuffle some more idols and hope he doesn't draw this Skulking Geist in his top 12 or his top 10, something like that.
Yeah, and this feels like kind of the hand you're describing that StrifeCro actually has at the moment. Double Branching Path, Nourish, overall a hand that has a lot of card draw, but not a lot of Jade mechanics at the moment.
Next turn's going to be the first turn where he does anything particularly exceptional with the Nourish as well as the Arcane Tyrant coming down. And it doesn't look like this Fandrel's going to die unless HotMEOWTH chooses to go for the Dragon's Fury here. I believe the Dragon's Fury would have been guaranteed in his list, but that's such a powerful card to have later on, it dealing up to 5, 6, 7 damage to all minions guaranteed, that I think letting this Fandrel live and letting a Nourish happen is actually pretty reasonable, because the game is going to go very long. He knows that.
Yeah, absolutely. And HotMEOWTH luckily already has the Geist in hand, one of the most deciding factors for his game plan here.
StrifeCro, knowing the hand, would want to get the Spellstone out ASAP. He may be more inclined just to Wrath. He gets the extra card draw now. I think it's reasonable to do either. It's also a bit of an optimization if you play the Spellstone, but you know you're going into Meteor turn, so there's a good chance the Strandal dies, so if you want to get this Wrath cycle out as well as kill a minion, you have to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that Fandral does get the additional value at the moment. It's a little bit harder to cycle the Wrath against Big Spell Mage. A lot of times the minions just don't really die to something like that. And at this point, StrifeCro looking here to maybe play a little bit more around Meteor, maybe not even throwing out Arcane Tyrant into the mix at this point.
Yeah, Big Spell Mage just doesn't have minions in general. I think that's why he really wants to get this Wrath out for the draw. He might even be forced to do it on his own minions at times. He's going to choose to go with the Tyrant. This is a pretty strong setup. If he had taken the trade, he would have been a little better versus Blizzard, but I think it was fine to go face.
Yeah, and here for HotMEOWTH deciding to go ahead and play Skulking Geist on turn 6. Knowing that StrifeCro had a little bit of additional mana left, you could willingly realize that the Fandral wasn't going to have that much impact. Malfurion coming out here, a huge draw for StrifeCro.
Yeah, huge, agreed, huge draw.
Overall, just very, very impactful in the matchup. Just getting to whack him for 3 more damage here. Pressure more with this Malfurion, and maybe you don't need that many Jades to kind of close this game out afterwards.
Well, you're looking at a lethal setup with this Malfurion for sure. Double branching paths with 6 minions out is 24 damage, so that's a lot. Probably going to do it. Also, just the threat of hitting each turn for 3 damage is a big deal, because this mage deck actually doesn't have too much defense and interaction with their own life total. They have Alexstrasza Frostlich Jaina, which Edwin has both of at the moment. But a lot of time they struggle. We saw in the game with Mookie Baby. He could not get the healing. StrifeCro is looking to UI next turn, it looks like. So he's going to opt to go wide in this manner instead. This is pretty equivalent against removal. He made the IO, which is resilient. The 3-5 is somewhat resilient to AoE. But it looks like HotMEOWTH, being wary of this branching paths threat, is just going to go for the full clear with the Dragon's Fury.
How do you feel about the Dirty Rat in HotMEOWTH's hand? Was it worthwhile to play it this turn, or as HotMEOWTH did hold on to it for maybe a later turn to combo with Blizzard the following turn?
I guess he values the 2-6 a lot, so he wants to play it out Blizzard and then have his taunt left over, which is reasonable. That'll work out well versus a lot of things. But since he's going to UI turn, there was a chance that he didn't get a great minion. I think holding it overall was fine. I wasn't opposed to playing it. I don't think it's a very consequential decision overall. Maybe there's something he's waiting for. He wants to time it. Maybe after StrifeCro draws 5, he wants to do it so he has a better chance of getting the Forgotten King, the 10 mana refresh.
Yeah, I think StrifeCro is heavily contemplating at the moment whether or not UI is the correct play. He did pick up the Jade Blossom here, could go for 2 Jade minions instead, and that definitely complements his hand of 2 branching paths as well.
I don't hate Malfurion and Jade Blossom here. It was kind of a sneaky play because you put up 2 1/5s and a 4/4, but each branching paths would have represented 4 damage, so it would have 4, 8, 12, 13. It would have had 15 damage. It would have almost had lethal, and if he chose to not go for the ping, then it would have just been lethal with the trade.
Yeah, and HotMEOWTH this turn, playing out the Dirty Rat, now has a pretty good read on what StrifeCro has remaining in the hand.
Do you think he's going to... I think he's almost certainly going to Blizzard. Do you think he's going to take the trade over the 3-4 as well? Or
the Tyrant in?
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
it's good versus UI,
reasonable.
which is
like
very in his
overall,
range because he doesn't have any minions.
Right. Like, he wants to make sure that the 4-4... Oh, doesn't take the trade here. Maybe going for a heavier value trade later on. Maybe even valuing the health on the Tyrant so much because he has Frostless.
Yeah, it is an elemental. That'll be a big swing. I just think it was very likely that it got UI'd regardless if you took this trade or not, because it was the best target on the board for the UI. So I'd have liked to see him take that trade, especially with the Dirty Rat. He knew that he had only spells in hand. It was pretty likely that there was a UI coming down. It would have been a pretty big stretch to say that it would have been other things. So I think he could have maybe taken a trade, thought a little bit deeper about that turn. But see the Doomsayer, that's an interesting inclusion. I feel like most lists don't play that card, but with the comboed with the Blizzard, it can be effective.
Yeah, in HotMEOWTH's list, I think he has more of the big spells, which means there's less Arcane Intellects and things like that in the early game. So he needs things like Doomsayer and Tar Creeper to kind of, pull their weight against the aggressive matchups here. But unfortunately for HotMEOWTH, StrifeCro, true to his nature, has brought what seems like a full control lineup. I wouldn't expect anything less from the control master himself, StrifeCro.
Firebat always used to say, you can't outvalue the crow. I stand behind that adage. I've never seen StrifeCro get outvalued. I was watching him play a Shaman Mirror one time, and it was really close. They were both playing like Elemental or Shaman or something. I think it was like DreamHack Austin. And then he started making Jades. I was like, he just has the whole Jade package, too. StrifeCro has never been outvalued in his life.
Yeah, and out here, he actually doesn't need the value, closing out this game early with double branching paths. Geist had nothing to do with this game in the end. StrifeCro piled on the pressure, had the remaining Jades in the hand, and took lines that I definitely agree with overall, just kind of more aggressive. StrifeCro navigating that very, very well and putting on the pressure in the matchup. He recognizes won't be able to go late.
Yeah, so game 2, I think StrifeCro is actually playing the combo Dragon Priest, the list that Asmodai has popularized with the Divine Spirits, the Inner Fire combo, and it plays a very minimalistic dragon package, mostly because it wants to play the card Twilight Acolyte. What Twilight Acolyte does is it switches its attack and another minion's, giving that minion 2 attack. You can then Potion of Madness that minion, and then potentially even just one-shot them like that. You steal it, it has charge, you buff its health a bunch, you give it Inner Fire. That can be up to 16, 20, maybe even 30 damage if it's on something like a Void Lord.
Yeah, and overall, the Dragon Inner Fire kind of priest list that StrifeCro has brought has a very favorable matchup against the most powerful deck in the format, the Rizakis Priest. One of the things that Priest has always been a little susceptible to is burst potential, and boy does StrifeCro's deck have a lot of that.
Do you think he has the Temporis tech for this matchup?
The Temporis tech for the matchup?
People say that Temporis is quite good in this matchup.
It's always a possibility considering the fact that there are Nether Spite Historians in StrifeCro's deck. So overall, Temporis, a dragon that can't be discovered, it's actually a higher discovery rate because Temporis is only a priest minion card.
If they're not in Anduin mode, it's lit. Trust me. You play it, and then they can't kill you, right? They're priests. They like at best they'll kill your stuff and play some stuff, and then you just make a guy and you buff its health, and then you interfire and kill them.
I don't know, Amnesiac. I feel like that's still a little risky, given the fact that they can just slam Vel in one turn, and that ends up being a lot of damage the following turn, too.
Oh, well, yeah, I had a guy do it against me like 5 times in a row, and I kept winning. But it sounds cool. I like the idea. It's just the execution probably doesn't pan out as well.
Yeah, Tempora's kind of maybe a backup plan, but StrifeCro deciding to lead with the Radiant.
And he actually just didn't play anything.
On turn 2, he actually played nothing. Not even the Netherspite Historian, given the fact that HotMEOWTH played out the Northshire Cleric here.
Kind of weird.
I mean, you gotta
You
play
think he's going to
something
not
out.
play... I mean, does that mean he doesn't want to play anything until he plays this Operative?
Well, if you don't draw a dragon within the next few turns, then even Operative won't be live at that point.
I think his idea might have been it's really nice for Priest to get the heal on 2, but if he gives him the heal on 3, it's more awkward. Like, they have things they want to do on turn 3, Cabal Talon, Priest, Glimmerroot, Acolyte. So, if he makes him draw now, I think he's more okay with that. I probably would have just given him the draw.
Yeah, I thought not playing anything on turn 2 was alright, but overall, definitely this turn and the following turn, we'd like to see another Spire or something else even come down.
Think HotMEOWTH's going to develop or take the draw?
Oh, definitely taking the draw every time here.
I think a 3-3 was pretty good.
I mean, overall, it ends up being... the onus is always on HotMEOWTH to put on a little more pressure throughout this mid-game here.
I think the key card that he actually has is Psychic Scream. Just the ability to diffuse the board state, and silence too, I guess. But if you can diffuse this Priest board state like twice, they're generally out of stuff to do. They don't actually make very many pushes. If you look at the threat density of the deck, they usually top their curve at Lyra the Sun Shard, maybe the Temporis tech for this matchup. But they actually don't have that many minions. They play a lot of spells. They need things to stick. So if you can kill their minions a couple times, you can get into a situation where you really just can't do anything. And that's when they revert to their backup plan of using the Potion of Madness combo from the opponent's minions.
Well, Amnesiac, are you familiar with a movie called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
I thought that
And
was
it's kind of the concept here where StrifeCro is kind of hiding all of this burst damage. Once he gets just one minion to stick, as the game goes on, there's always the potential for that double Divine Spirit, the Inner Fire, and if you leave just one minion up overall, HotMEOWTH is going to be in big trouble.
Is that like the Karate Kid?
Like the Karate Kid?
That movie, is that like the Karate Kid?
Well, I just explained what it is in Hearthstone terms.
So are you Mr. Miyagi?
That's a completely different movie. I think you're mixing a few things up here.
Mr. Miyagi's so sick, dude. And then Daniel wins the fight versus the bullies. I love that movie.
Did you just spoil Karate Kid for our watching
Come on,
audience?
dude. It came out before I was born.
No, they're trying to reboot it. It's kind of that thing where like
Wasn't
Star
Jaden
Wars
Smith
20
in the
years
most-
ago and now it's back.
Wasn't Jaden Smith in the most recent one? I think I saw that one.
I did not see the Jaden Smith one.
It was
I
good.
refuse to acknowledge that as the new Karate Kid.
Nah, it was good. It was heartwarming. He learned to play the violin, I think.
All right, we'll spoil that one for them instead, all right?
Come on. All right, what's going on? Hearthstone? Oh, okay, he did it good. He played the guy. It's good.
Yeah, overall, I think StrifeCro still looking for a few combo pieces. Going to hold on to the Shadow Visions as long as he can in this kind of matchup. As he draws into more combo pieces, he'll know exactly what he wants off that Shadow Visions. Also holding on to double Radiant Elemental, understanding that the impact of reducing all of his spells is going to be much more powerful than the 2-3 out on the board in this kind of matchup.
If he were to pick up one more combo piece here, then that would mean he could Visions for the remaining one, and then he could go Divine Spirit, Inner Fire. That would be 24 currently. So he's starting to get close to lethal. He's going to need one of the incidental health buffs, be that Power Shield or Cabal Talon Priest, and then do that, most likely. Or he can just chip HotMEOWTH down to, say, 20 life, and then his combo becomes much easier to execute.
Yeah, and one thing to note here is that StrifeCro did see that Shadow Word Pain was still remaining in the deck, and that gives StrifeCro a lot of leniency to play something like Lyra Sunshard very freely if he happens to draw that in the next few turns as well.
Yeah, I really like that part of Dragon Operative, just like the information game. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think understanding that those 3 cards are still remaining in your deck is such a huge deal for your overall game plan. And StrifeCro being a control player, definitely taking some notes on that as well.
You ever do it, and then you see that Raza and Anduin are down there, and you're like, ah, sweet, nice. And then they just still have it on curve. You're like, really?
That's just pretty unlucky.
Yeah. I played Frozen one time in a tournament, and I operative with 3 cards left in his deck, and they were Raza, Anduin, Velen.
Ooh.
I don't remember.
Well, you know he's drawn those
I don't
pretty
remember which
soon
one I
then.
took. I think it was Anduin. It's pretty good there.
Yeah, and HotMEOWTH kind of struggling here with 10 cards in hand.
I'd give
Weighing
up
these
this Lyra.
decisions out. I mean, he does have a lot of combo pieces here, but just not quite sure how to use them yet. It's definitely not a Lyra turn yet, so what are you going to get rid of in the hand here?
I didn't hate just playing the Lyra and letting it die. I don't think you super need it. You have 10 cards in hand. I don't think you desperately need value. I would argue this Radiant Elemental is probably more value here. Also, well, this is risky.
Yeah,
he could die.
This is big.
He could lose.
Absolutely.
StrifeCro's probably on a draw to win. StrifeCro's rubbing his hands together. Ah, okay, he didn't draw the Potion of Madness. If he had Potion of Madness there, he would be one off lethal if he visions the right card. No, he needs another combo piece. But still, this was a gamble. This could have gone poorly.
Yeah,
there are a lot of cards sitting in StrifeCro's hand from the beginning of the game.
HotMEOWTH knows that StrifeCro is running the combo list, and here, just giving him the ability to Potion of Madness a Radiant Elemental is such a huge asset to StrifeCro's overall game plan. HotMEOWTH deciding he doesn't need it, though, or maybe he wants to force StrifeCro's hand here and force him to play something against Radiant Elemental. If he doesn't, he has the ability to set up something like Lyra the Sun Shard the following turn.
Do you think this is going to be a Lyra turn? Lyra Potion of Madness? Just take your draw, force the attack?
Well, I think HotMEOWTH's game plan was to make StrifeCro's turn a little more awkward. He puts out this 2/6 Radiant Elemental that isn't contested by the Draconid Operative, and if it survives, he's able to play out the Lyra the Sun Shard turn. How do you feel about that risk that HotMEOWTH took?
Did you say Draconid? Draconid.
Draconid Operative. Yeah, the card out on the board at the moment.
Yeah, Draconid. Drakonid.
So overall, how are you feeling about the risk?
No, I'm still... No, okay, we'll talk about Hearthstone. Yeah, I would have just liked to see a Lyra. I don't think... Wow, okay, that's really good. Never mind, he nailed it.
Shadow Visions.
I think that the random Lyra spells are usually pretty unimportant. I think you use it a lot just as a way to buy time. Like, you play it, and it kind of has taunt. They have to kill it. Sometimes it disrupts their turn. And looking at his hand with Anduin and Psychic Scream and Dragonfire, it's really heavy. So keeping the Radiant Elemental for post-Anduin, I think, could have really helped him get some extra pings out if he were to find that Raza, then suddenly he's looking at lethal setups. But having a Lyra in hand, he used it, but he had to use his coin, too, which is a big deal. Now he can't coin Anduin. That's huge. Getting Anduin out as soon as possible is generally going to be your best option. He might be forced to Psychic Scream preemptively now, just so he doesn't die.
Yeah, this game, HotMEOWTH's hand has been all kinds of awkward. Putting out the Radiant Elemental, hoping to set up a Lyra turn, overall not getting it, but still not a bad Lyra, getting out that Shadow Visions, picking up the Holy Smite. I think I might have gone for something like Mind Blast even. Holy Smite on its own isn't doing a whole lot, and you do have the Psychic Scream.
What is StrifeCro doing? I'm just gonna watch. I don't know what the plan here is.
Just watch it unfold, Amnesia.
No, I'll play by play.
Okay,
he killed the Draconid Operative. Okay, he attacked for 1.
The Pyromancer is a little bit
he stopped
weird.
doing things. I don't know what just happened. I think he should have just played the Operative, right?
Yeah, I think Operative was fine. Maybe he's like trying to force out a Psychic Scream to have an Operative stick for later on.
I think he got excited. I think he was like, I think I have lethal. I'm going to go for it. And then he kind of realized, he's like,
Well, StrifeCro also does have something like Alex Strauss in hand. It is one more turn before that, so, going wide before Alex would have been more reasonable, but going out to only 8 mana, it is kind of a little preemptive, as you were saying.
I would have just really liked the Operative because, HotMEOWTH used his coin, so he couldn't Anduin. He would almost have to have Psychic Scream, or that board would just be really threatening. Maybe StrifeCro draws a combo piece, or he just visions one, and then he's got 12. He would have had like 18 damage. It would have been a lot. He could have made a big push going into Anduin turn.
I think StrifeCro overall willing to part with one of the Radiant Elementals, understanding that 2 at this point is a little bit of overkill. There's enough mana at this point to basically do as much as you want with the combo pieces with just 1 Radiant on the board.
HotMEOWTH showed a lot of discipline with that Scream there. He didn't go for the full clear, and he figured leaving up a 5/5 was fine because he's going into Anduin turn. I like that a lot. The Scream is going to be really important post-Anduin if StrifeCro does something like make a wide board of bigger minions, because they don't die to Dragonfire Potion. He knows that Dragonfire Potion is actually going to be pretty bad later, so he used it not for great effect, but for enough effect. It'll get him to his Anduin turn in a safe position. Now, StrifeCro is in a really awkward spot because he knows that he's going into Anduin turn, so he doesn't really want to play as Operative, but he doesn't want to do nothing, because if he doesn't have Anduin, then you'd feel pretty silly.
Yeah, I mean, overall, StrifeCro for the past few turns has just been kind of waiting on the one additional combo piece. He has Radiant, he has a Divine Spirit, and the Shadow Visions. He's just waiting for one more ticket so he can kind of figure out what he wants off of the Shadow Visions pull here. I mean, without it, his game plan just isn't really coming to fruition here.
That's some extreme patience from StrifeCro. I agree with his analysis that yes, HotMEOWTH will land win no matter what here. So that's interesting to me. I may have still done it just because if he didn't have Anduin, it would have been really strong. And I don't know how important it is to have this 5/6 because you have the Alexstrasza coming out next turn. But I think that is a reasonable thing to say. He's going to have to do this no matter what. Maybe I'm going to hold my 5/6 back for later.
Yeah, and for StrifeCro, this turn is either going to be the operative, or he's maybe going to take a larger swing here and just go ahead and play the Alexstrasza. Which line do you prefer more?
Yeah, I think that would strand the operative, I guess, is the only argument against it. But it being an 8/8 versus a 5/6, 5/6 is much easier to kill with just pings. But I think stranding the operative may be something he's not willing to risk. And if he operative is just a cheap minion, then he can play that, and he'll have 2 things out, which may be a lot better. So I think the operative overall is better, though if he had a guaranteed operative next turn, I think I would have liked to see him go for the Alex this turn.
Wow, and StrifeCro's plan definitely coming full circle here. He's got Radiant, 2 Visions, and both Divine Spirits. I mean, unfortunately, that means he can't Shadow Visions for a Divine Spirit, so the amount of burst potential in hand is all he's going to get, but he can't pick up something like Inner Fire at this point to kind of push that all together.
I'd certainly like to see him take the Inner Fire here. Then he has the full combo assembled. It's actually pretty likely that all he needs at that point is Twilight Acolyte, right? And then he can Twilight Acolyte, Potion of Madness, Divine Spirit, Inner Fire. Though he knows he has 2 Inner Fires and another Visions shot at it, so he took the shield because he knows he wants to draw on those other combo pieces, which is another reasonable approach, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that comes from a lot of play on this deck, is understanding that overall the deck has so many combo pieces. What it's kind of lacking is the amount of card draw. Overall, it's just 2 powered shields. That circle with Northshire Cleric can help a little bit, but the deck doesn't have a lot of natural card draw, making it kind of awkward in these mid-game to late-game turns for StrifeCro.
Priest struggles with class card draw, right? We know the Purify debacle of 2016, and Powered Shield's a really powerful card, but I think they're afraid to print more cards like it because it's just so good, and so is Northshire Cleric. So as a result, it doesn't have a good mid-game draw option. Druid has Nourish, Druid has Branching Paths, Rogue has Elven Minstrel. You look at these things, Warlock has Life Tap. Priest struggles with that, which is difficult for Priest because its 2 main predominant archetypes right now are combo decks. This deck aims to deal 30 damage in 1 turn, so does HotMEOWTH's deck. They do it in entirely different ways, but playing combo decks with kind of a lacking of card draw can be very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And StrifeCro here does need something like you were alluding to earlier. The Twilight Acolyte would help him secure this game.
I think it would just be lethal, right? It would be 8, 16... Yeah,
30,
it would have been
32.
lethal. Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, quick maths. A
Yeah,
little
good
bit
talk.
over 30. Yeah.
So I think he's just going to leave this Priest of the Feast here.
Just biding his time until you get to the... yeah, I like that. I might see some very awkward scenarios pop up where HotMEOWTH begins pinging his
I
own
like this
Priest of the
shield a
Feast.
lot. Or he might just silence it. This shield is really nice. Oh, if that was Twilight Acolyte, it was game. Tension in the room is palpable.
Yeah, StrifeCro here. I'm going to take a quick look at his list, see how many Twilight Acolyte he's running at the moment.
I'd be amazed if it wasn't 2.
Yeah, it is 2 in the deck list, so StrifeCro on an Acolyte draw to win it all. Or just this game, really.
Now that he knows what he wants off this Visions, maybe he could go for the Inner Fire, but he probably knows his deck a little better. He's actually going to give Edwin an easy way to get this Priest of the Feast off the board. But if he does that, that means he still has to address the Alexstrasza. StrifeCro gets himself a lot of time, and it's not like HotMEOWTH can never play a minion and win the game, or at least it's going to be very hard for him to do something like that. If he plays, he's going to have to play Raza at some point, right? And then that's already a 5/5, which can conversely deal up to 20 damage. You double it, you steal it, and then you...
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of playing out the Alexstrasza this turn either. Overall, it feels like StrifeCro has so much burst damage. He just wanted the Priest of the Feast to live. He didn't really need to put him down to 15 at this point, especially when the Feast will heal him right back up anyway.
Yeah, he could have just played the Twilight Drake out even, if he wanted to. I think playing nothing was an interesting line. I think that at that point you're committing and saying, I am going to need to draw Twilight Acolyte to win this game, but if I do, I will win almost certainly. Whereas he's taking this line, which is, to me, saying, I think I can win in other ways, but maybe now if I draw Twilight Acolyte, I don't immediately win. But I think he's still in a very good spot if he does, right? Twilight Acolyte would put him in a position where if HotMEOWTH really ever played a minion, he'd probably lose.
Yeah, I think overall, it even signified to HotMEOWTH StrifeCro's overall game plan to steal the Priest of the Feast when he ended up putting Powered Shield on it as well.
He's 1 mana off lethal there, if he drew Twilight Acolyte. because he could go Twilight Acolyte, Radiant, Potion for 0, Divine Spirit. No,
You just can't fit the Talon Priest in there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because you need 8 mana for Talon Priest, Twilight Acolyte, and Radiant, and then you need 2 mana for the 2 Divine Spirits, and then you needed a mana to Visions for the Inner Fire, so it would have been an 11 mana turn.
Yeah, this might be a turn where StrifeCro even just goes for Shadow Visions now to get the extra mana out of the way.
I would like to see him do that, because he's not on a Twilight Acolyte to draw currently, but if he gets that 1 mana out right now to find that Vision, to find that Inner Fire, he is, which is could be the difference between winning and losing. That's a very big deal.
Yeah, StrifeCro weighing his options a little bit here.
What do you think? I would just Vision and pass. Definitely don't want to give up the Twilight, or you don't want to give up your last Dragon, because then Twilight Acolyte's not active. You want to get the Visions out so the Twilight Acolyte's lethal, and you don't want a Talon Priest, because that's part of your OTK currently.
Yeah, I think StrifeCro's just overall thinking about how much he wants to commit to the board state, whether or not he wants to put out this Talon Priest and get it out of ping range, but overall he hasn't seen Silence yet, so it seems like this Twilight Drake will go down.
I don't think that he's too concerned about it, though. I think he understands that he's drawing towards Twilight Acolyte. And this is the interesting part of this deck, where it used to lack. Divine Spirit Inner Fire Priest could always do the thing where it buffed its own minions. But with the introduction of Twilight Acolyte and Potion of Madness, in the late game, you get into a situation where you can actually still win, even when you're being pushed off the board, which is where this deck used to struggle. Purify Priest, if you just killed their minions, could never do anything. They could never win.
Yeah, and here HotMEOWTH likely going to take the time to kill off his own Acolyte. I'd like to see that with the Spirit Lash here.
Well, that would damage him. There's the Akanai out.
Well, what's the real big difference between 22 and being at 19? Like, overall, you're just going to be dead to the combo anyway.
Well, he could ping and put his guy to a 3-1, then the combo wouldn't kill him. He pings his Acolyte, he trades, then it's just a 3-1.
Darkness.
That seems fine to me.
Well, StrifeCro does have the Circle of Healing as well in his deck.
True, so he would Circle of Healing before, because obviously if you take it and circle it, it would die. That'd be pretty funny. If he wants to get on Reddit, I mean, you gotta evaluate your options here. I'm feeling heal pass. This is the wait turn.
Yeah, with so many combo pieces assembled in the hand, StrifeCro's still missing the final ingredient, Twilight Acolyte, to win it all here.
He could heal the Akanai if he wants to. Kind of a giveaway of the plan.
It's not a bad bluff. It could even make HotMEOWTH make some interesting plays of his own, where he ends up killing off his own Akanai to try and not allow StrifeCro to take his minion in the end like that.
I buy it.
Yeah, let's see how HotMEOWTH reacts to this.
Chooses to fit in the ping. Now if he draws Raza the Unchained, he actually cannot play it.
Yeah,
there's a big difference. The upside of 2 damage was pretty minimal there, in my opinion. He's going to pain if he's going to shield, right? Shielding would put yourself in a position where you'd still be dead. Though we know StrifeCro doesn't have the full combo currently. Well, he's going to risk it. Twilight Acolyte, once again, is a draw for lethal here for StrifeCro. His deck has got to be getting pretty thin at this point. Twilight Drake. It's not it.
Both Twilights in the name. Unlucky for StrifeCro to
That
hit
ain't
the other
Falco.
one. StrifeCro, after seeing a silence here, pretty willing to commit to the Twilight Drake on the board. He's getting a little tired of waiting around for this Twilight Acolyte. Maybe he has to make a push on his own.
Well, he needs to get a card out of his hand or a rollover draw, and that would be unfortunate. He's gonna want the card he draws here, I'd imagine. How much damage does HotMEOWTH have? He's 6 off right now? Getting pretty close. Wonder if he can ever make a play that sets up lethal here. You would need to put him to 12?
Shadowy thoughts.
Yeah, he actually could have, right?
I mean, he has 14 from hand.
Well, leaving the Twilight Drake there obviously has negative implications, so I think his decision to kill it is quite reasonable. Alright. This Tar Creeper is still an issue. I think I would have held it if I were him. I don't think it can only get it can only make you die, right?
Well, maybe he's picked onto the fact that StrifeCro doesn't have a silence in his deck, so overall this Tar Creeper will stay a 3-5 on the opposing side.
Even if you Twilight Acolyte it?
Oh, he's always been in that situation against Twilight Acolyte.
But will it, Wait, does it become a 4/5 if you Twilight Acolyte? It does, right?
It gains a passive effect, yeah. It actually goes back to
Yeah.
4. So
Okay.
Dark Creeper actually very solid in this.
Ironically,
this state.
extremely resilient to the
Yeah.
Potion of Madness combo. I got a Radiant Elemental.
As you start whipping out
No.
these Inner Fires.
Yeah, you don't need 3. They don't stack well. Yeah, I mean, you cycle 1, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see any reason to keep on to the 3rd copy of it.
Ghoster could put it on that one, not the Lyra. I guess he's afraid of Shadow or Death. Power or Tentacles. Does that ever fit into his combo? If something lives, I guess it does. Nah, probably not. Alright. HotMEOWTH has no ways to draw cards left, really, so he's really just waiting on this Raza so that he could start setting up lethal. I'd like to see him try and make some kind of push even without the Raza. StrifeCro's deck doesn't really heal. He could have a random Lyra card that'll heal him, but for the most part, it can't really do anything defensive, at least in terms of interacting with its own life total. So if HotMEOWTH can find a way to set up lethal here, I'd really like to see him go for that. And it looks like he's going to go for the max damage push. He's going to do this, probably Shadow Word Pain this Lyra, put StrifeCro down to 14. StrifeCro can heal up to 16, but then if this stuff stays in play, that's going to be lethal from Edwin. Next turn he has Velen, Mind Blast, Smite, that's 14 from hand.
Yeah, absolutely. HotMEOWTH picking up on the lethal setup here. StrifeCro's still waiting on the out here. A full hand, but not the combo pieces that he needs to close out the game.
Weird, he just died. He just cannot kill anything in play. Right? He can't Potion of Madness, the Duskbreaker's not active. Hey, he just lost. It's really weird.
He could inner fire the Pyromancer, heal it up, steal with Potion of
Wait,
Madness.
is this lethal? Can you do that and kill him?
You can't do that.
Wait, no, think about it. Okay, so we Radiant, we inner fire the Pyro, we heal the Pyro, we take the Pyro, we become the Pyro.
Wait, is there a setup here? He does have Power Tentacles. There's actually a lot of damage.
Wait, how much mana is that?
Wait,
So
wait.
it's 2, 5... Wait,
No, StrifeCro.
I think it was enough. Wait. He could have gone Radiant Elemental, Inner Fire the Wild Pyro, Heal the Wild Pyro, Potion of Madness it, Cabal Talon Priest it, heal it, double Divine Spirit.
I think
no,
that was
I think it was a little
very,
short.
very close there.
It was close. Wait, no, because he could have Power Word Tentacles instead. I think he might have had Exact, or he was like 2 off.
It's really hard
It was
to do
really
the quick
close.
maths
With the
Pyromancer
Pyromancer,
proc.
yeah. I think it was really close. I wonder if he even thought about that.
I'm just going to trust that StrifeCro did the math and said that it was just
25. The Tar Creeper would have been dead. That would have been lethal.
Was the
Yes,
remaining
he-
health underneath 25?
He was at 22.
Yeah. I think StrifeCro actually missed an exact lethal there, but it ended up being just 7 or 8 cards within the hand there.
That would
a
have been
very
sick.
difficult one to spot.
If he did that, it would have been nuts.
Well, I mean, considering we took
We-
an extra 3 minutes just to figure
We
out
didn't
the
even
math.
see the. I didn't even really see the play at first. Like you pointed out that you could interfire the Pyro. That didn't even really cross my mind.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a very strange and wacky play, but when you got this combo deck, there was a potential out there.
That would have
But
been so
now-
PogChamp, dude.
One of the things that we do know, though, in this next series is that HotMEOWTH does not run Ice Block in his big mage list, and that can be very devastating in a combo matchup such as this one.
Oh yeah, Ice Block solos this deck. As aggro mage, you can like fatigue this deck because of Ice Block.
You're playing this a lot online, or you got
Well,
this
no, I just did it
aggro?
one. I just did it one time, and I was like, God, they just can't beat Ice Block ever.
And
Sick.
it feels like you're speaking from experience. I'm like, maybe this is just a thing that's been occurring. I've been away from the game maybe a couple of days. Meta might have shifted a little bit.
Void Lord the deck. That's all I gotta say about the meta.
Void Lord of the deck.
I think this overall is probably a good matchup for StrifeCro, though. Does Edwin even play? Oh, he does run Polymorph. Okay, so he can deal with things in that way. If he didn't run Polymorph, just to like maximize the Dragon Sphere potential, he would be in a spot where he could get really blown out. The one nice thing is that he's not going to be playing too many minions for StrifeCro to do the combo onto.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the nice thing about StrifeCro's combo deck is it doesn't really try to interact a whole lot. all of your stuff is done on one turn, and things like Polymorph don't really get the chance to be reactive in that kind of strategy. So StrifeCro just has to draw as much as he can and hope that the combo pieces land at the right place this time around.
This Cleric on one was a really big deal. It forced a ping from HotMEOWTH that drew him a card. It's a really good card on turn 1.
Yeah, agreed.
Good, good. I think he's going to coin this Twilight Drake out. He could make, if there's no Polymorph, he could just buff it and make it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He could make a, it's going to be a 4/7. He could just make a 10/10 next turn if it didn't get Polymorphed, which would probably just win the game. I would probably go for it. And it has to be exactly Polymorph.
One of the downsides of having these Dracona operatives in this matchup is that a lot of the time you're just going to be discovering a lot of removal from the Mage's deck, and the Mage doesn't play very proactive, and that removal just ends up sitting up in your hand, and it's hard for StrifeCro to get rid of those cards, especially when you need those hand spaces for 7 or 8 combo pieces towards the end of the game plan here.
Yeah, you can't even get something like Arcane Intellect because HotMEOWTH just doesn't run it. It goes for the maximum consistency on the Dragon's Fury. StrifeCro's going to take the risk. I'd be surprised if this doesn't get met with a Polymorph. I suppose HotMEOWTH could try and set up a Doomsayer and Dirty Rat behind it as well, but I'd like to see him react us in some way. I think Tark Reapering is pretty weak.
Yeah, one of the downsides of polymorphing so early is that maybe StrifeCro is able to go in on a Divine Spear Interfire following that. Just something pre-Meteor to get in a little bit more chip damage as well. There are punishing ways to the early polymorph. Instead, HotMEOWTH is going to go ahead and decide to play Doomsayer out.
Well, there's no silence in StrifeCro's deck, and I don't believe there's a Shadow. Yeah, there's no Shadow or Pain. So the only way this would die would be to some sort of Interfire combo. Now that would just be healing your guy and Interfiring in some case. I'd like to see StrifeCro make a bigger guy than that. I think committing the Cabal Down Priest is pretty minimal, but at the same time, you get more in play. And I definitely wouldn't like to see... He could give up his minion to the Doomsayer here if he wanted to, but I'd like to see him be aggressive. I think giving the Mage too much time is a way for him to lose.
Yeah, I think this is a really good bait from HotMEOWTH as well. Recognizing that StrifeCro's deck does not have silence in it means that, as you said, Amnesiac, he will have to commit an Interfire to deal with the Doomsayer, and StrifeCro may be deciding that he had the read that there was no Polymorph in hand, will just be strictly met with this Polymorph.
Yeah, that was actually a really good setup. That made a lot of sense. He could have also been Duskbreaker there. Was the only other thing that could have killed that Doomsayer, which was an interesting option for StrifeCro. He would have had to commit fewer things, but he would have lessened his board a lot. Overall, I don't mind him taking the risk and going for the larger minion and forcing the Polymorph, but there was some counterplay to HotMEOWTH's play beyond just Polymorph.
Yeah, and Firelance Portal, probably the best pickup from HotMEOWTH's deck overall here.
Yeah, pressure and damage. Most of the pulls are going to be pretty poor. I'd say Frostlich Jaina, if that was something you could discover, would probably be pretty good. Looks like we might have a slight technical issue with HotMEOWTH's screen.
Yeah, it seems like mid-game there might have been a bit of a DC, but it is a friendly match, so Blizzard has implemented recently this kind of reconnect feature, so we won't be losing the board state here. It looks like HotMEOWTH might be back online already, back into the game.
He's ready to game. We'll refrain from saying anything about the game while he doesn't have his headset on. We'll let him play his turn. Meteor, nailed it. There we go.
That was a good call.
Yeah.
Very professional on your side.
Thanks, buddy. I think about this stuff a bunch. Yeah, okay, well, both players have their headsets back on. We can get back to giving you the riveting play-by-play action. StrifeCro going to play another Draconid Operative, getting it out there, developing some more board. Got any other generic caster words you want to throw out about the situation?
Yeah, I mean, StrifeCro is really not looking for Skulking Geist here, and that would put a big stop to StrifeCro's
Oh,
game
geez.
plan.
Oh, yeah, that just solos this deck. I forgot. Oh, this must be a pretty good matchup for HotMEOWTH then. No Ice Block makes it harder, but without
I don't
Interfire.
think so.
Without Interfire, what do they do?
I think the chance of you assembling the combo before they find Skulking Geist is pretty good, especially when HotMEOWTH doesn't have the card draw. He has to hard mulligan for the Skulking Geist, barely over 25% to find it.
But you do agree that once you get Skulking Geisted, you're kind of dead.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
completely
So
over
long
at
as
that
we're on
point.
the same page there. Yeah. I don't know the math on all that. Not really a math kind of guy. More of like a feel gamer.
We just did a lot of math on that combo.
Yeah, this was like elementary school math. I did 2 + 2 = 4. I had to write that out on a piece of paper.
Not the best at maths.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, StrifeCro here probably looking to, instead of Firelands Portal, maybe fill out his curve with a bit of card draw from the Northshire Cleric. The Firelands Portal does kind of stand out as the go-to play, but you do have the opportunity to draw a few cards from Northshire. You kind of take that when you can, because a lot of the times the mages won't have minions for you to draw against.
He might be thinking maybe he can set up a board that wants to get blizzarded, and then he wants to save the cleric in the circle for post-blizzard. But overall, drawing 2 here, getting the cleric developed, I think is reasonable. I like this. The Flamestrike Tyrant play was pretty weak. I think you can put your opponent having somewhat of weak plays from now on. So I think drawing is reasonable. Also, he wants to go fast. Like we said, there's a Skulking Geist in HotMEOWTH's deck that is pretty lights out once he draws it. From there, he just has to stabilize versus average statted minions. So StrifeCro, the onus is definitely on him to finish the game quickly.
Yeah, and there's the Blizzard that you were talking about. Overall, StrifeCro could have been rewarded if he held on to the Northshire Cleric and the Circle of Healing.
Yeah, agreed. I am pretty smart.
Yeah, maybe it was time for StrifeCro to maybe wait a little bit longer on that. What do you think?
No, I think it was very reasonable to draw 2. He drew 2. He's threatening to draw a 3rd here unless the cleric gets dealt with in some way. And he just needs to go quickly in my mind. But this is the only source of card draw, so maybe looking to get 3, 4 cards would have been better. And he is pretty far off from the combo, I will say. He doesn't have Divine Spirit or Inner Fire. The best he can do right now is buff something's help with Cabal Talon Priest, which isn't great.
Yeah, and overall, HotMEOWTH could go for something like Dirty Rat Blizzard this turn, but I don't think it's a very game-winning play. It's not able to deal with the board as it stands. What do you think are the merits of maybe going for a more aggressive line, like maybe even Medivh the Guardian here? Disrespecting StrifeCro's combo ability, but at the same time, maybe setting the way for you to win this game.
Well, he doesn't die to Divine Spirit Inner Fire, which is like a pretty reasonable thing to say. All right, well, if I don't die to the base combo, I'm probably fine. Divine Spirit's lethal here.
StrifeCro does pick up the Shadow
Wait,
Visions.
that's,
not a lot of spells left in this deck.
If he goes Radiant Elemental Visions, that's 3 mana.
It'll be
He's
exactly
1
one
mana.
off.
He's 1 mana off, and it's 1 damage off as well. He's still gonna go for it.
Well, he does have some follow-up damage in the form of Firelands Portal. So maybe setting him low this turn isn't such a big deal.
Maybe you can also sneak in the damage with the Potion of Madness.
Oh, on the Artificer or Dirty Rat later on in the
Yeah,
game?
it's something. I don't know.
Yeah, there is some potential.
Or
with
like
that as
Medivh
well.
pulls out like a 2/3 off this, like Corrupted Seer or something. I think him putting him to 1 is quite reasonable. Like his board wasn't frozen. He can make a 16/16. 16/16s are pretty big. He has to have hard removal for this at some point too. Like he needs to freeze the board most likely, and that means the Drake can't get dealt with in the immediate sense.
Yeah, it is asking a lot of questions here. Like without Ice Block, HotMEOWTH needs to heal and deal with the board state
if
all
he-
in the same turn.
Oh, if he dirty ratted, it was 2 and 3 to be lethal, right?
2 out of 3, the Dirty Rat and
the Artificer would have both been
That's-
lethal.
That's a little bit of that caster vision taking effect
Well,
here.
it was, I don't know. The deck doesn't play that many minions. I think going for lethal there is pretty reasonable. If you get Alex, you're not upset, right?
I think StrifeCro is in a winning position here either way. Having the board state that he does at the moment, the Firelands Portal pickup, it seems like there's not a whole lot of risk that StrifeCro needs to take at this point.
But Arcane Artificer is some of HotMEOWTH's best counterplay to a play like this. So when you play that Dirty Rat, you're saying, if you have Arcane Artificer, sometimes I'm just going to win the game from here, which I think is a pretty reasonable thought to have an approach to take. You're taking one of the best cards against you and saying, I can use this to kill you this turn, instead of letting you use this card powerfully.
Yeah, and here, HotMEOWTH rolling the taunt actually stops StrifeCro's lethal potential of Potion of Madness on Dirty Rat and the
Firelands
Firelands
Portal,
Portal.
That's a big development. What would StrifeCro need to close this game out right now? If he were to pick up an Inner Fire, he could go... I think Inner Fire... No, he doesn't have the board space for Inner Fire to work, because he needs to Talon Priest with it.
How do you feel about HotMEOWTH not swinging with the Atiash weapon there to kill off something like Northshire Cleric?
Yeah, I would like to see him do that. Kill off the Northshire or the Radiant Elemental. I'm interested that he killed the 5/4. I think the Radiant Elemental and the Northshire are probably more threatening cards than that overall. And you're going to need to draw a freeze, most likely, to close after that. StrifeCro's just making one big man currently. Oh. Is that enough?
Well, it's enough to clear
It
up
clears,
the majority
yeah.
of the board, and that's always a nice feeling, too.
Wow, he actually got that thing to full health. That's insane. What do you think about just Potion of Madnessing, taking the clear, and playing Cabal Talon Priest?
Yeah, I think overall it's a great play, especially when you have near lethal damage with like an Straza top deck.
I think just cleaning up that Artificer is really important. This is one of the better ways to do it. You have the Firelands portal coming in next turn. I like to see him... It's actually really funny, this Drake doesn't die to Meteor. I've never seen a minion not die to Meteor.
Yeah, at this point, StrifeCro has effectively played around Meteor as well.
Ooh, the
Pretty strong
Blizzard.
options.
I think that might have been the only draw that kept him alive. HotMEOWTH shown his fighting spirit, staying in this game. He's going to need some more help beyond this, though. I think going for the Acolyte of Pain and trying to draw some cards is very reasonable. He's going to need more than just what he has in hand to stabilize out. This ATS roll is huge, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, let's just do a little bit of brainstorming. What does HotMEOWTH? He keeps on rolling these taunts.
Rin the First Disciple. So he's got to spend... All right, I'm going to get my pen and paper out. There's 5 seals? There are 5 seals? So he needs to spend 35 mana to do a Zari. That's a stretch.
Yeah, not the best consideration for the spot here.
Is there any dragon that deals damage over the top? I guess Malagos, sort of. Oh. Okay, that's a little surprising. I didn't see the other options, I guess, but... I suppose he's thinking there's a chance HotMEOWTH will go all in with all of his cards at some point, and then he can just Deathwing and close. Like, HotMEOWTH only has 1 card, which is an odd spot.
All of his 1 cards.
Well, yeah. It's an odd spot for Big Spell Mage to be in. Usually they have options. He doesn't have any currently. He's got this Jaina, which hasn't seen play yet, and a Dream.
Yeah, and StrifeCro here deciding to play Operative out instead. Was there any merit to kind of healing up the Twilight Drake at this point? I think Meteor plus some other spells would have been enough to keep HotMEOWTH in this game.
He took the Skull King next.
Yeah, you want to get rid of those inner fires, thin out your deck.
I think you're trying to thin out your deck for the inner fires. It's a bold play. I'm not going to question StrifeCro. You can't outvalue him.
I mean, Deathwing is a lot of value once this board state may get resolved by whatever HotMEOWTH has.
I think HotMEOWTH needs another... Oh, no, he has the Tar Creeper, actually. But we know that there's the Firelands portal to take care of it. So he's going to need to get another taunt off of Atiesh and go 3 for 3 here. Otherwise, he is just dead. He's going to need a Dragon's Fury, get a spell that clears up the whole board, and then follow up with this Tar Creeper, have 2 taunts out, and then maybe he can work towards stabilizing, but it's still going to be a really uphill battle.
Yeah, and HotMEOWTH getting something lower than 5, it seems.
Ooh. Well, this is okay, because the Rin also survives, so he can use that to take the trade. He also gets 1 more card here. Oh. Ah, jeez.
Skullman's kind of the opposite of a taunt minion here.
It has, like, soft taunt if you put Spiker Steed on it. I was doing that for, like, a week when the card came out.
Then it just has taunt.
Oh, him getting a 4, actually. Oh, no, the Pyromancer, never mind. The 4 was almost good enough to keep him alive. If the 1/1 blocked the Drake, that would have been pretty hype.
Yeah, Wild Pyro, Firelands Portal should close out for StrifeCro.
StrifeCro sees the lethal of this game. A lot less complicated than last game's situation, and we're going to go to 2-1 for StrifeCro. HotMEOWTH's going to need to find a win with this big mage deck as well as his big druid, unless that got banned. I'm not sure what the bans were on either side.
I think overall StrifeCro probably stuck with
I just think it looks cute.
the Arthas or the Lich King cards.
He's going with the Arthas. But Army of the Dead, you know, it's got those eyes.
Yeah, and StrifeCro here with his final deck, the Control Mage. One thing that is very interesting to note is that his mage list does not run Polymorph, and Polymorph being a crucial card in this matchup.
Oh my god, this is going to be really hard for him.
This is definitely in line with StrifeCro's strategy overall. The idea that we don't need Polymorph, we don't need Silence, because we're just not going to be dealing with Void Lord in this tournament. HotMEOWTH here with maybe a deck from left field. StrifeCro wasn't expecting a lot of Big Druid, and thus the matchup that generally is pretty favored for the Big Spell Mage, both Meteors, both Polymorphs. Now he's gone and cut off half of his removal options against this deck full of threats.
I'm surprised HotMEOWTH going out this Jade Blossom. He doesn't actually have follow-up to it. I don't think drawing off of this branching paths is going to be very good. He could have just waited, played Jade Blossom on turn 3, nourished, played Malfurion, and then coined a 10-drop. I think I would have liked to see that better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the line here.
Luckily for StrifeCro, he did not Dirty Rat on curve. That would have went poorly versus Big Druid.
Well, one of the nice things about the top 4 here is that the players do know the deck list overall, and maybe this is something that carried HotMEOWTH through some of his earlier games is the fact that Dirty Wrath ended up hitting a 10 drop from his big druid instead of a Jade minion that didn't summon a Jade.
Those are some big men. I don't have anything else to say about this situation.
Yeah, overall, it seems like HotMEOWTH may be taking a little bit slower. Like you said, we would like to see him hold on to the coin here. Would have been able to coin a 10-drop into a 10-drop. Instead, it'll just be Lich King into maybe a Malfurion or something along those lines.
Yeah, his curve worked out really well since he picked up the Lich King. But this deck actually has kind of awkward mana slots. On 8, less so they have Medivh and the Lich King, but on turn 9, usually this deck plays only Alexstrasza, maybe one more dragon, like a Malagos or Ysera. But it's pretty common that turn 9 is actually kind of weak for this deck. So I'd like to see him save the coin, just because he could coin a 10 and then play another 10, which is where this deck's big power spike is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at HotMEOWTH's deck, it only has Ysera, Alexstrasza, and Lich King in terms of threats that are underneath 10 mana. So it's a deck that where you actually have to play for the 10 mana curve. The coin 10 into 10 is probably something that happens very often in this group build.
StrifeCro having Medivh is pretty key. I think he's going to have to be the aggressor in this matchup and kind of force HotMEOWTH on the back foot, because HotMEOWTH just has so many threats. And the big thing is this Deathwing Dragon Lord is not going to get polymorphed or transformed in any way, which means it's going to be pulling out 12-12. It's going to be pulling out 4 8s, 4 12s. It's going to be very powerful.
Yeah, I think if StrifeCro had put the polymorphs in this deck, it would have been favored for him, but without them, it looks pretty hopeless already.
Never count out the crow, man. I've learned one thing. It's that you never count out the crow.
Speaking of never counting out StrifeCro, he did pick up a Dragon Caller Alana here, which is a great way for the mage to pressure back a little bit in this matchup.
What would you like to see from Edwin here? Yashiraj or Deathwing Dragon Lord?
Probably the Yashiraj.
I like the Yashiraj as well. This was good. Very likely to pull out another big boy. That's a lot of stuff for, yeah, jeez.
I have one meteor already used on the Lich King. StrifeCro basically only has this second meteor as the emergency trigger to deal with the board state. I'm wondering now if it'll just come out this turn.
I think it's going to have to. This Yashiraj can't be allowed to live. It's one of the only threats that you can't just leave there. It's not just raw stats. Its effect is really scary. So I don't think StrifeCro can take this turn to Medivh reasonably. He's going to choose to Meteor instead. I think he's looking for a turn where maybe HotMEOWTH plays Deathwing Dragon Lord or Ultimate Infestations. That's the turn where StrifeCro's going to have enough time to Medivh. I think this Dragon Caller Alana, though it will most likely be blocked by Spreading Plague, it will just run over those Spreading Plagues and then still be presenting a big threat. I think if he's going to win, that's going to be a huge factor as to why.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, HotMEOWTH's only real answer to that is Deathwing, and at that point, you're just dealing with the rest of the threats in hand, which is rather nice.
So he could have just Oaken summons Arthas there. That would have been pretty funny.
Oaken summons into Arthas.
He Oaken summons 3/6 versus me, and it was really good. And then I found out later he had Arthas.
Would you consider that an anti-synergy?
Yeah. Remember the guy who was playing Zola the Gorgon and Oaken summons? That was hype.
Yeah, a lot of that sounds nice in theory, but does have ways to kind of backfire.
I don't think it sounds nice in theory. I think it sounds pretty poor in theory.
What would you like to see in the Oaken Summons build? Just the 2 Ironwood Golems? You kind of need a third threat when you don't run the Fandral, though.
Mogashan Warden's pretty good.
Mogashan Warden, even Ascended Shield Master's alright.
Yeah, the Rainad special, Mogashan Warden. Remember when he played that in Miracle Rogue one time?
You just put Cold Bloods on that thing, and it ends up working out pretty well.
That's sound to me. Put branching paths on that, it's like big Senjin.
Apparently this works more in theory than the Arthas here.
Huh. Yeah, agreed. Mogashan Warden, good talk. How many big spells has StrifeCro played? Is it 3? So this Alana would pull out 3 5/5s. Is he afraid of dying, do you think?
It seems pretty unreasonable to play around like the Lich King card and a swipe at this point.
I just think he has to gamble at some point here. I'd like to see him play a threat, either the Dragon Caller or the Medivh. Maybe he thinks the Dragon Caller needs to go the full distance, but the Firelands Portal is a kind of a nice middle ground. He gets to develop something while not being in a position where he's going to die. I just worry that as he continues to kind of make defensive plays, HotMEOWTH's just going to keep playing big guys, and it's going to be really hard for him to ever have that turn where he's like, okay, now I'm safe. I can develop my board. I don't think he's ever actually going to have that turn where he's safe. though the taunt off of the Firelands portal is huge. He definitely has the time to develop one of his threats now. I think I'd like to see it be Medivh. What about
the
you?
ice block not being green in StrifeCro's hand means he actually does have an ice block up at this point. So, like, I agree with you. I would have liked to see StrifeCro take a more aggressive stance in this match, especially with ice block up.
Well, I think getting the ice block popped, you're in a pretty poor position. But you don't outright die. And maybe if HotMEOWTH were to go all in to pop your ice block, and you could set up another one and maybe freeze the board and set up 2-turn lethal of your own, you could make it work. But I think that this taunt roll was very big. And now, yeah, StrifeCro's going to take the turn. I've never seen that card get played before, I'm going to be honest. It looks pretty cool. And it doesn't die to Dragonfire Potion.
Yeah, and HotMEOWTH here is suddenly on the backswing, has to decide what to do here. It will probably just result in him playing Deathwing further down the line anyway.
I think StrifeCro has Blood Mage Thalnos, and we should check. Nah, he doesn't. That'd be really good versus Spreading Plague with the Flame Strike. I wonder if this came up often enough. Do you think people would do that? Put in the Blood Mage so you could Flame Strike the Spreading Plague after you played Alana? It doesn't sound that ridiculous.
Well, it's kind of your only option, right? Because you can't play things like Arcane Explosion.
You can't play Volcanic Potion, yeah. I mean, Blood Mage doesn't even seem that bad in this deck.
Yeah, it actually works out very well. It makes your Dragon Sphere a little more secure as well in terms of AoE effects.
Just a thought. Breaking the meta one step at a time.
I'm taking some notes.
Death is eternal. My
2
turn
plus
is
2
not.
minus 1.
My thoughts are plagued.
Quick. There's the Artifice that we were alluding to a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
as well.
there he is. Anti-Magic Shell off that Artifice would be huge.
And StrifeCro picking up the Skulking Geist. Definitely was expecting more or less Jade Druid coming out from Druid archetypes here. Instead, HotMEOWTH with the big Druid. And still, StrifeCro seems like he's got some game here.
Yeah, Dragoncaller Alana is kind of an odd inclusion. It's kind of a classic StrifeCro type of card, but it's proven to be quite good here. He found a time to play the Dirty Rat. Turns out he just had to have no space for a minion to come out, which I think is actually pretty reasonable. And StrifeCro, again, recognizing he probably needs to gamble again here. He can't take another defensive stance. He needs to get this Medivh out. He's actually been able to amass a pretty big board, which is impressive for a deck that's so based around removal.
Yeah, and HotMEOWTH here, definitely in a bit of a bind. Overall, he could set up a block pop here, but it would leave the board state unchallenged.
My thoughts are plagued.
Yeah, so he has the Death Coil in the... He has... I think plopping the Ice Block is probably good.
Or I think HotMEOWTH is really just trying to find something like Doom Pact here, maybe, to pull him out of the situation.
Yeah, because once well, then he'd lose a lot of cards. He might just get fatigued if he did that. He's going to opt to... Oh, this is a pretty good middle ground. Oh, whoa. I was right about the Anti-Magic Shell.
That's a great middle ground.
Oh, yeah, this wasn't a middle ground. This was just nuts. Jeez. Arthas. What a card. Who would have thought?
Doing it again. And you were saying this Arthas could have been a Mogushon Warden.
Yeah, about that. These are like big Mogushon Wardens that Arthas made, so it's kind of the same thing. Like, depending on your stance on things.
Yeah, that's a good spin on it.
Yeah, I thought so. I really had to work for that one. You think he's gonna Dragon's Fury? Yeah, Flame
Yeah, it
Strike.
looks like the Flame Strike is a pretty fine setup here for StrifeCro.
He's gonna be able to take out L with the taunts. Ooh. Hey, that was free too.
Quarter Creeper, one of the strongest parts of the set, but not what you want to see off of your 7-drop though.
What would have been the really good 7-drop option here for him? Oh, actually, there's no swipe or second Spreading Plague. Spectre's still doing it. That's insane.
Baron Get It, the best card that HotMEOWTH could have seen there.
I mean, it's gonna need a swipe. This is a lot of damage. Does his deck run swipe?
Yeah, there are 2 swipes in HotMEOWTH's list. Just a little unfortunate. He hasn't found a copy of Swipe just yet.
You think he's gonna look for it off this Nourish, or is he gonna make a more conservative play? So he's at 27 plus 15, 37, 42 life. And StrifeCro has 20, 27, 34 showing with his weapon and the ping. So StrifeCro's not quite going to be able to kill him if he just decides to pop the Ice Block. Though StrifeCro will certainly set up 2-turn lethal. What HotMEOWTH could potentially do is try and, let's see, he has 22, No, he actually can't quite pop the ice block. What he could have done is, if he could pop the block, he could have tried to do that and then just Deathwing the board next turn. That would have been an interesting line. It looks like he's going to take the stance, look for the swipe. He doesn't find it. This is a lot of damage from StrifeCro that's still sticking around on the board. I'm not really sure what HotMEOWTH's going to do. And he also didn't pick up many dragons. He's only going to be pulling out the Deathwing.
Yeah, just doing as much against this board state as he can. Go ahead and remove the two biggest threats. Maybe even using the Lesser Spellstone a little bit just to clear out some of these dragons. Still a very high amount of life total for HotMEOWTH to work with here.
HotMEOWTH's got to be starting to get low on cards in his deck, right? I think he's at risk of potentially getting fatigued from here because he's had to use so many resources in a defensive posturing that maybe StrifeCro, if he picks up something like Frostlich Janet, can just go the distance now because he's had to use Deathwing Dragonlord, Yashirash in defensive ways rather than being proactive and popping ice blocks and forcing StrifeCro on the back foot.
Yeah, in terms of threats left, HotMEOWTH only really has the Ysera and the Khan, who is in the hand at the moment and for remaining threats. So StrifeCro definitely keeping track of how many threats are left on the other side, deciding again to take a more defensive stance, still building up the board pressure.
I think he's just going to win. I'm surprised. This was a weird game. HotMEOWTH can make a big play here, though. He can play the Forgotten King and then refresh all of his mana and play Ultimate Infestation as well. I think he's going to have to make that push and then hope he gets there, even though he'll overdraw one card with that line. I think he just has to take some sort of risk here.
Yeah, the hand is definitely too clunky at this point. You can't afford to cycle your mana with the Wild Growths and Branching Pass. You need that draw at the moment because it's proactive. It removes that 4/4 off the board, and you're just hoping that Ysera ends up in the hand and not being discarded.
Does Ysera ever just live? StrifeCro's used 2 Meteors, Flame Strike, 2 Portals. He still has this Dragon's Fury. I don't even know how many spells are left of this Dragon's Fury.
Well, in theory, the Ysera lives, but StrifeCro overall has had just such a dominant board position that he's able to maybe even trade into Ysera with remaining minions on this board state.
That's a good point.
My turn. I'm out of cards.
So, HotMEOWTH going all the way to fatigue here. He really does just have very few threats left to work with. He's got this Ysera, which he could potentially Earthen Scales up to give it a bit more life, but things are looking pretty grim for him, I'd say. StrifeCro is still above 30.
Yeah, Arcane Artificer doing a lot of work in this game.
StrifeCro has a board clear without playing any of his cards, or without using the Dragon's Fury here. I think he's probably just going to trade the board out here. If he wants to, he could go face. I'd be pretty surprised by that, given he's in such a dominant position going into fatigue.
Yeah, and although HotMEOWTH is playing the big druid, Skulking Dice still did manage to hit an Earthen Scales here and a Jasper Spellstone. And that's a bit of health gain, a bit of removal gone from HotMEOWTH. HotMEOWTH deciding to wait a turn on the Ysera, killing off the board state, and then hoping Ysera will be able to pull it off as a last-ditch effort in this game.
Ah, jeez. David, I don't think this is going to work out. StrifeCro's at 31. Edwin's repping 3 power. He's got this Branching Paths, but I'm looking at his hand. It's looking pretty dry. StrifeCro knows, if he's been keeping track, the only threat left is this Ysera. And while he is pretty much out of removal, I don't even know if the Ysera will close on its own if it's allowed to live.
Yeah, overall, you would need quite a few generations. You would need maybe a few 7/6s in there. As long as you're not hitting Laughing Sisters, I'm pretty happy with it. Even at this point, we don't even take a Laughing Sisters.
You think StrifeCro's thinking about holding on to this Dragon Fury? I think if I were him, playing it's reasonable in case you're afraid of drawing one of your final big spells off this Raven familiar. But at the same time, you could have maybe just held everything there and tried to chip into the Ysera next turn. I'd be surprised if he chose not to draw with this Raven familiar afterwards, though. I think he's just looking for a removal option or stall or anything to deal with this Ysera, because once this Ysera is dead, HotMEOWTH has no chance to win the game anymore.
Yeah, but I kind of like StrifeCro's line taking an aggressive stance here, understanding that just getting an extra minion out there with the Atiyesh weapon still is a good way to play around Ysera a little bit.
Full tempo play. Give me that one, too. He knows that HotMEOWTH's going to have to spend mana playing Ysera. It's not like it can get hero power. It's a pretty heads-up play. So now he has 6 damage showing, 8 from the Blizzard, 9 from the ping. So he can put the Ysera all the way down to 3. And that's 3 more. That's a kill on the Ysera. And I think that leaves, if he chooses to go for it, which I imagine he will, I think that leaves HotMEOWTH with no way left to win. Branching Paths, Ultimate Infestation, double Wild Growth, Jade Blossom. That's not high threat density at this point in the game.
Interesting.
I have never seen Knuckles do that. It's pretty cool.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Knuckles has a sweet animation. I can't believe players don't play more Knuckles.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, it's still in standard for
Oh,
me.
you know what I mean.
I can rest now.
Yeah,
And that's
HotMEOWTH
gonna be
will scoop
it.
up.
Game 4 goes to StrifeCro. He's going to take the series